Here's our question. 11 more penalties yesterday. The opening kick of the game. Illegal block in the back. Ben could say all he wants. We have to clean up the penalties. Now he said it's on the leadership. It's been our battle cry, I think, is what he said. How does this get fixed? Because if it doesn't, what are you if you don't take the football away?
Yeah, I mean, the takeaway is I think we all could tell that was probably having for a game. I know that's the goal, but that's an unattainable figure to expect that you're going to have that every single week. But before that, when you talk about the penalties, like, it's sloppy football, and it's killing drives. They get down in the red zone on the first drive, and then Colston Loveland false starts. And then they can't run the ball, and then Caleb gets sacked, and then they have to kick a field goal. And it happens it just happens routinely. And, there were more defensive penalties yesterday than there had been. We're always talking about the pre-snap penalties of the offensive kind, but there's encroachment, there's an illegal shift, there's illegal hands to the face, but there's quite a few defensive penalties I don't think you're happy with, not the ones that you can live with if it's a well-defended play and it's defensive pass interference. Like, honestly, I heard Ben yesterday say that, and to me, that's him throwing his hands up, being like, I don't know what to do with this. Like, it's on you guys. The coaches have been harping on this. As he said, like, they have been pounding the table about this for a long time. Now he's putting it on the players, like, to take it seriously enough. Because, like, what is the solution? You're not going to bench guys, like, because it's not a college team. When this happens in college, you have 90 players on a roster to be able to replace somebody who keeps having these issues with penalties. You have 53 guys on an active roster. If your starting tight end, who yesterday was Colston Loveland, gets flagged multiple times, I mean, I'm not saying it happened once yesterday, but, like, if that happens, like, are you really going to go with a lesser quality player? Like, that would be a message to send, but I just don't think that they would do that. And I don't know, it's so frustrating to watch over and over again, and I'm sure it's frustrating for the coaches to have to witness this stuff as the way it's being coached. Maybe that needs to change, but 8 weeks in, they're talking about the same things that were issues back in July 20th, and that's a problem.
Courtney, the disconnect that Caleb Williams had with the offense last year versus the disconnect he has as far as trying to get it into the end zone, passing into the end zone, does that look the same to you or different?
There's parts of it that look similar. Yesterday, I think he's holding on to the ball too long. And I know that Ben Johnson claimed that he wasn't really aware of that number. It's over 3 seconds. It was the longest in the league last week. I'd have to check to see if anybody else, like, time to throw wise surpassed him yesterday. But that's a flaw of Caleb's game that's coming back into haunt him a little bit, where he's waiting too long for things to develop downfield and not necessarily seeing things, I think, as clearly as he would like and probably the coaches would like. That's where I think the disconnect is.
In terms of how this gets fixed, they didn't run the ball well yesterday. They also defensively are completely outmanned in the defensive corners because you're missing, if we count Terrell Smith, Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, Jalen Johnson. Can they go to the scrap heap at all? Is there anything they can do, or it is what it is?
Well, Ben said yesterday he didn't think Kyler would be a long-term IR injury stint for him, but
that's a month, right?
It's week 12, yeah. Like, that's a minimum, 4 games. Like, clearly they couldn't get it done with the group that they had. And, like, even to think about someone like Josh Blackwell, who was your backup nickel corner and lost that job, like, they don't trust him to have one of those roles back there. So your depth is not going to be able to cut it. Like, I guess you hope that Stevenson, since Ben said it was a week-to-week thing last Monday and then reiterated that you hope you get him back for this Bengals game, because we know that, they can score points. Joe Flacco and this offense put up 38 in a loss yesterday. I think if you can get one back, that's good. But right now it feels like, based on the injuries, that they're going to have to bring an outside body in. But does it really make the unit that much better? Probably not. Like, this is a byproduct of the attrition factor that started early in training camp when we found out Jalen Johnson wasn't going to be out there. And then now it's slowly kind of domino affected on itself, where you don't have your starting group of corners, and it's a problem, and it's hurting your pass defense in a big way.
Courtney Cronin with us as we review the Bears and their loss against the Ravens 30-16 on Kap and J Hood. Courtney, what's the latest on all the injuries?
Yeah, so the Dominique Robinson ankle injury left them pretty thin at defensive end. Shamar Turner, I believe that was a knee injury. He left the game right away. They're thin on the defensive line. Like great time that they could, or great opportunity, I'd say, to activate Austin Booker to the active roster. Like that should be among the things that they do within the next 24 hours because they have to before tomorrow. The 28th is when his window closes. But those were the two, like on the defensive side that we were keeping an eye on. And then Olamide Zaccheaus, I believe his was a knee, and then Luther Burden had a concussion. I saw Burden leaving the locker room yesterday, didn't notice anything, but obviously it's a head injury, so he'll be in concussion protocol until he's able to clear it.
In terms of Austin Booker, this dude's had his window open. It's 3 weeks tomorrow. Like what is going on there?
The explanation we got last week was that there were other players they felt put them in good position, and they were comfortable riding with them going into that Saints game. Now you don't have defensive end depth. If he can't get onto the active roster, that is an indictment on the front office because that's the coaching staff saying, now we're good. But there's no reason for that now, knowing that Robinson's got an ankle injury, Turner, who plays defensive tackle, but also, he can play some edge as well. Like, he's out too right now because of the knee. Like, there absolutely is no reason for him to not be on the active roster at this point, unless he's been full. Like, there's no injury reason that would hold him back at this point because Ben has said he did not have a setback. He has been full in every single practice. Their actions have told you they feel that there's other guys that are better suited to play off the edge in Dennis Allen's defense than Austin Booker. Maybe he doesn't have the right body type. Maybe they're seeing something in practice that's holding them back and wanting to, unleash him. But now I don't think you have a choice because everybody else behind Montez Sweat and Dayo Dengbo is hurt, and that's a problem.
So, going back to what Ben Johnson said, this is going to be a story, this week, what Ben Johnson said. Well, we beat that drum. I believe that was the quote yesterday, Courtney, of we beat that drum since training camp about cleaning up stuff and just the penalties and all that. Now he's put it on the captains. This is going to be an interesting storyline because on one end I could say, hey, Courtney, look, it's got to be collaborative. It's a new coaching staff with players that can't get out of their own way, so they got to fix this together, not just the captains, but everyone.
Yes. But the coaches, what more can the coaches do is what Ben's I interpreted that as what he was saying. The coaches have done everything that they could. They've tried to coach it a certain way, and yet it's still happening. It's not like anybody's maliciously trying to do this, but something's not clicking to where we've given you the tools. It's on you as players who make adult-level decisions, adult-level salaries, to take it to heart. And if you're not getting it right, ask questions. If it's happening in practice, figure out why on the spot. This is the accountability factor that I think is coming into play off of what Ben said yesterday, but also what he's been saying. He can only throw the offense off the field so many times in a practice to get a message through. You can't do that in a game. So, if he's exhausted all options, at that point, you have to turn to the players and say, it's on you guys now. We're doing everything we can. We have done everything we can now for months. If you can't get it right, you've got to figure out why that is by looking at yourself and looking at your teammates that ultimately you're responsible for.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. And I'm not advocating to make a quarterback change, but to your point of what's he supposed to do? They can harp on it so long. There's only 53 men on the roster. Is there any scenario where, like they did in Carolina a year ago, where they sat Bryce Young for a week or two and then gave him his job back, that he'd be like, you know what, Caleb? We can't get these guys organized right. We can't get out of the huddle with enough time on the play clock. We're getting false starts. We're making decisions that don't help us win. Tyson's starting Sunday.
Well, if you look at what happened with Bryce, Bryce was getting killed back there. Physically, there's physical things that were happening, the sacks and all of that early on in the season. and they were losing games, like, in really big ways. Like, the Bears are still 4-3. I get what you're saying, Cap, and I don't think that you should ever rule out if something isn't working. It's, because Ben has gone to lengths to protect the quarterback. He's talking about, like, when we were asking him last week about Caleb on the run, Caleb in the red zone, the offense in the red zone, a lot of those things where receivers need to run better routes, guys need to block better. Like, a lot of it throughout the last couple months has been protecting the quarterback. And I think he's, even yesterday, like, they both clearly had different interpretations on what happened on the interception, like that he should have gone a different way with the ball. And, Caleb said one thing, Ben said another. Like, that's showing you that there's some sort of disconnect there.
Yep.
But I don't know if benching the quarterback, like, I think things would have to go really, really off the rails for that to happen. Now, it's not to say that it wouldn't benefit him. I do think that sometimes you need to take a step back, and it's impossible to do it effectively in a 17-game season where week to week you are constantly locked in and locked down on what you have to do, that there really is no time to learn, like, truly learn new things in season when you have to pick up and do what you have to do as a starting quarterback. But I just don't see it happening. I really don't. I think that is such a drastic move to make that you'd have to see some massive regression from Caleb Williams for that to be on the table.
Courtney, lastly, what are the repercussions that are on the table for the Ravens for this whole thing with Lamar Jackson starting or not starting?
So did you guys hear what John Harbaugh said yesterday when he was trying to justify, like, he said, like, yeah, they labeled it wrong or they said it wrong with the whole full participation. Someone followed up, and they're like, who's they? Who labeled it? Who told you that? And he's like, the trainers and the PR staff. Like, this man is trying to protect his own earnings and his money, and, a gigantic CYA move to say it was no one on the football side who got this wrong. Like, this is going to be a six-figure fine and a potential draft pick getting taken away. And I would imagine that there are some not happy people inside of that building in Baltimore right now, given the way the head coach handled that. And not to longer, but, like, they have been the model of consistency for a while. And I think sometimes that arrogance catches up with you, or, like, I guess that consistency can turn into arrogance to think that they could get away with it, something like this. It's very evident that it didn't have anything to do with gambling. I know the perception that's out there, but they were trying to pull one over on the Bears from my perception on this. Like, they were trying to have a competitive advantage to be like, oh, well, maybe Lamar will play, maybe he won't. Like, how would we know that, like, it very clearly states right there in the injury policy guide that you can't list a player who's normally a starting quarterback, a guy who's won the MVP, as a non, you could list him as a full participant when he's running the scout team. Like, you can claim ignorance all you want, but that's what's gonna tick the NFL off, and that's why I think when I had spoke with the league spokesperson on Saturday, they said, yeah, like, we're not taking this lightly. Like, we are going to be investigating this, and they will probably end up dropping the hammer on them at some point.
Courtney, have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Be interesting. What time is Ben going to speak today?
I believe he's at 3:00.
All right. Look forward to hearing what he has to say after watching the tape. Have a great rest.